the mystery that still haunts us. It was supposed to be a normal, uneventful night. March 8, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Routine flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing was about to take off. Passengers boarded the flight with no idea that they were stepping into the unknown. Business people, families, students, and tourists, 239 people, would board this plane, not knowing they would vanish into thin air without a trace. Takeoff was smooth, as expected. The plane soared into the night sky, the engines humming, the stars twinkling above. The crew was professional, the passengers at ease, and everything seemed just like any other commercial flight. But there was one thing they didn't know. The plane would never reach its destination. Everything seemed normal at first. The pilot's last communication with air traffic control was routine. "Good night, Malaysian 370. At 1:19 a.m., the transmission ended, and then, suddenly, the plane was gone. The transponder, which sends information about the plane's location, stopped transmitting. Radar lost the aircraft. A massive, empty void. No one knew where it had gone. No one knew. The clock kept ticking. Minutes turned into hours, and still, there was no sign of MH370. Where was the plane? What had happened? The air traffic controllers were left in complete disbelief. Then the military radar caught something. For a brief moment, hope rose. The plane was back on the radar, but something was terribly wrong. It had turned around. A complete 180-degree turn. The plane wasn't heading toward Beijing anymore. It was flying back across Malaysia, heading toward the Andaman Sea. Why? What could possibly explain such a dramatic, unexpected change in course? At this point, things started to get strange. The flight path wasn't just unusual. It was mysterious, unsettling, terrifying. But why did it happen? Why would the plane just change course like that? Was there a problem on board? A fire? A hijacking? The world was left with no answers. But what happened next sent chills down the spines of millions of people around the globe. The plane kept flying. For 7 more hours, 7 hours. The plane continued to fly. No communication. No distress call. No sign of life from the cockpit. No response from the crew or passengers. The plane was flying into the unknown, at cruising altitude, lost in the void. What on earth could have caused a commercial airliner to keep flying for that long, with no sign of distress? Was it possible that the crew had been incapacitated, or was something even darker at play? As the hours ticked on, the mystery deepened. The plane's flight was tracked by satellites, and the data they sent back was terrifying. MH370 had flown far off course, reaching the southern Indian Ocean, a place no one had ever imagined. A vast, remote, and desolate stretch of water where no one would ever hear you scream. 7 hours of silence. The question was why? Why did the plane keep flying for 7 hours after communication was lost? Was it on autopilot? Or was there something far more sinister happening? A human hand at the controls, pulling the strings in a dreadful game? The theories began to pour in. One theory that emerged early on was that the pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, may have been responsible for the plane's disappearance. Investigators discovered that Zahari had a flight simulator at home. On this simulator, a flight path similar to the one taken by MH370 was found. Could this have been a premeditated act? Had the pilot deliberately flown the plane off course, leading it to its final resting place in the depths of the ocean? But then, there were questions that didn't add up. Zahari had been a veteran pilot, experienced, well-liked, with no history of mental instability. Was it possible that he, of all people, had just snapped? Or was there something else? Hijacking. That was another theory, but it seemed so unlikely. A hijacker would surely have made demands. The plane was in communication with air traffic control for a while. Why didn't the hijacker make a call for ransom or political motives? Why didn't anyone step forward to take credit for it? The more people tried to piece things together, the more confusing the case became. It was as if the plane had disappeared into thin air, vanishing without leaving a single trace behind. And as the search began, it quickly became clear that the ocean was no ordinary enemy. The southern Indian Ocean is known to be one of the most remote places on Earth. Far from any land, it's an uncharted territory, a place where wreckage could drift for years without ever reaching shore. And that's exactly what happened. The search for MH370 became one of the most extensive and expensive search operations in aviation history. Search teams scoured the seas, first in the South China Sea, then the Andaman Sea, and later the Southern Indian Ocean, an area the size of Texas. But despite their best efforts, nothing substantial was found. Nothing. Then, in 2015, a shocking discovery occurred. A piece of the plane's wing, known as a flaperon, was found washed up on the shores of Réunion Island, far from the plane's original flight path. This was confirmation that MH370 had indeed crashed into the ocean. But it raised even more questions. Where was the rest of the plane? Why had only a small piece of wreckage surfaced? Investigators pored over every scrap of information. They used satellite data to track the last known location of the plane. It had flown for 7 hours, and after that, it had gone silent. But it wasn't over. Theories flooded in. Was it mechanical failure? Was there an onboard fire? Could the crew have been incapacitated, and the plane continued flying on autopilot until it ran out of fuel? But the question still hung in the air. Who was responsible? Could it have been a deliberate act of murder-suicide? Or was it something far more complex? An act of terrorism? A hijacking that no one even knew about? As the years passed, the search continued. More wreckage was found, but still no answers. The world's best minds were on it, and yet the answers remained elusive. The families of the victims held on to hope. They wanted closure, but the world didn't have the answers they needed. But then came a shocking twist. In 2018, a private company called Ocean Infinity was hired to continue the search. Armed with cutting-edge sonar technology, they went into the deepest parts of the ocean to search for the wreckage. And then new evidence emerged. Data pointed to an entirely new area in the ocean, further south than previously believed. Could this be the key? Was the plane finally going to be found? But that's the problem. After nearly 10 years of searching, the question remained unanswered. What happened to flight MH370? Was it an accident, a mechanical failure, a hijacking, or something far darker? Theories continue to emerge, each more chilling than the last. One thing is certain. The mystery of MH370 is a story that has captivated the world, and it is one that may never be fully explained. The wreckage lies somewhere, deep beneath the waves of the ocean, and with it the final answers to the greatest aviation mystery of all time. Until the day those answers are found, the mystery remains. What do you believe happened to flight MH370?
Enjoyed this mystery? There's so much more to uncover. Milky Way, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the most intriguing and unsolved mysteries from around the world. Don't miss out on the next mind-boggling story. It's closer than you think.